the Church of Jesus Christ.
The essence of the American experiment is self-rule under God. But we are in the process of losing both those factors in modern America. In 1944, Judge Learned Hand made this incredible remark, quote, "Liberty lies in the hearts of men and women. When it dies there, no constitution, no law, no court can save it. No constitution, no law, no court can even do much to help it," end quote. That observation can be found near the beginning of a new book called The Patriot's Field Manual, a citizen's guide to saving America at the local level. The author of that book is Major Will Ostan, who is retired now from the Army. He's also a Pepperdine-trained attorney, and he's also somebody who's had affiliations with the Alliance Defending Freedom. Will, welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. It's my honor and joy to be here with you today.
All right, well, first let's start with this observation from you. What would you say is the spiritual state of the nation right now?
Well, right now we're in need of a great awakening or a revival or a restoration. But I see signs of hope everywhere. I believe that there are pockets of Christians who are beginning to take seriously our duty to defend our Christian democracy, and they're beginning to rise up and get involved in local level politics.
And I understand in your own personal life, Dr. Kennedy and this ministry, some of his books and so forth, have touched you.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So I grew up in a wonderful Christian home. My dad is my best friend, and I describe it as a world of books. So I would walk in his den, and he had everything from theology to literature to history. He loved Abraham Lincoln, and many of those books were Dr. Kennedy's books about America as a Christian nation. And so I would go in there, I would take them, scurry back to my room, and I would read. And so that laid an early foundation of inculcating some of these things that Dr. Kennedy has taught, for generations now.
And then later on, you served in the Army and you became a JAG. Tell us about that briefly. And what was it like to serve America? And by the way, thank you for your service.
You're welcome, sir. So my dad was in the Chrysler Building in Manhattan on 9/11, and I decided that after I went to Pepperdine Law School, I wanted to join the Army JAG Corps because I was a young man at that time and I had done nothing to serve my country. And we were at war in two theaters. I had enjoyed the blessings of liberty, but I had done nothing to pay the price. So I had only intended to stay in the Army for my initial commitment of 3 years, but I was given the great opportunity to serve as an Army JAG attorney with a Special Operations Task Force in Afghanistan, and one thing led to another, and then I ended up serving over 12 years before I was medically separated on 9/11 of 2019.
Wow. Interesting. Same day on the calendar. So tell us about your field manual. What is this all about, and what do you hope to accomplish with it?
Yeah, so I'm so excited about this and how God's used it. And so the impetus for this book was I had a bunch of local citizens from Northern California. It's called Shasta County, California. They contacted me in 2020, and they were doing, under the California Constitution, it's not only allowed, but there's a demand upon citizens, if their leaders are not acting in a way that's just, or they're not doing what they're elected to do, the citizens of California must recall them. So you had untrained citizens. They were not politicos. They were not experts. You had like a homeschool mom, and you had a Christian music producer who came together, and they said, hey, we're going to do a recall of the Board of Supervisors in Northern California. Now, the leftist dictates from Sacramento, anytime conservatives begin to get involved politically, well, what do? They bully and they intimidate. And so that's what they were doing with this organization called Red, White, and Blueprint that was doing a real-time documentary series. So they were threatening these great fines. Literally the state of California was threatening fines on a First Amendment issue for a media company.
Wow.
So they contacted me and they said, hey, can you represent us? And I did, wrote a 2-page letter to the state of California. Long story short, got them to back off. We won the recall. It shifted the 5-member Board of Supervisors to 3-2 conservatives. And since then, life has gotten a lot better in Northern California. Then, because of the docuseries, citizens around America started contacting Red, White, and Blueprint. How do we replicate what you did in Northern California? And so then they contacted me again and said, will you write a playbook or a field manual? So flew back out to California. I interviewed everyone who was part of this recall effort and Red, White, and Blueprint, and I put it together. And that's what you're holding here in your hands. So if what they did in liberal California worked, then I believe it can work in anywhere in America. So this is the playbook, sir.
Well, it's interesting that when Christians like yourself get involved in the political process, sometimes the left pushes back so hard. And in fact, for example, I want you to see this little clip from late night TV where James Carville remarks about Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who, of course, believes that the Bible is very important. And let's hear this clip.
Mike Johnson and what he believes is one of the greatest threats we have today to the United States. I promise you, I know these people.
Well, you're talking about Christian nationalism.
Absolutely.
Talking about this
is a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda to this country. This is a fundamental threat to the United States. It is a fundamental. They don't believe in the Constitution.
So what is your reaction to that clip?
I think that this is the same thing that David and Goliath faced, right? Goliath had an intimidation, bullying spirit, and then David rose up, and he actually in the Bible, when he tried to strengthen his fellow Israelites, he said, "Is there not a cause?" And the left wants to silence Christians. They want us to lose by default by taking us out of the public square, by saying, you don't have a right to be in the public square. You're extremist, you're crazy. And this is the same tactic that since time immemorial, anything that the enemy has wanted to use to silence Christians, it's a bullying tactic. So Christians need to refuse to succumb to that. We go into the public square loving our enemies with nonviolence, but we bring the truth of the gospel into the public square where it can transform families, lives, nations.
2024 is an election year, of course. And Dr. Kennedy made some interesting observations about how too many Christians sit out when it comes to even doing things like voting. Let's hear that.
I remember 20 years ago, a Christian said to me, "You don't really believe that Christians should get active in politics, do you?" And I said with tongue in cheek, "Why, of course not. We ought to leave it to the atheists. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything to complain about. And we'd really rather complain than do something, wouldn't we?"
What is your reaction to that?
I believe Dr. Kennedy is brilliant, and he's also prescient. I believe that as true as that statement was when he made it, it's even more true today. And Christians, we not only have a responsibility, but it's more than that. We have a duty to vote, pray, and take action. And we live in a constitutional republic where we can actually make a difference. And I know it's easy to look at Washington, D.C. and think all hope is lost and get frustrated, but we can be involved at the local level and make radical, restorative, redemptive changes from the bottom up.
So it's the people getting involved.
It's we the people.
Will, thank you so much for writing this book, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir. It's been my honor.
And I want to close with this thought. Founding Father Patrick Henry said this. He said, "It is when a people forget God that tyrants forge their chains."